Okay, so for those of you who ignore my shirt and the game stuff behind me, I'm doing another event. But for those of you who teach, who I've worked with on MTSOL classes or whatever, this is to help you think about how to use a space. One thing that a lot of teachers will do, especially new teachers, will do is they won't use the full space. They'll often hide by the podium or by the presenting computer. And in this room, this is the Writing Center at Chandler Gilbert Community College on the Williams campus. So obviously there aren't a bunch of desks or rows or anything like that. But I'm just going to walk around and help you see some of the important things about using space. So if I'm over here by the presenting mode, even with my computer on the other side of the room, you can see how far away I'm projecting my voice so that into a good microphone, and you can tell me how you feel about the audio. But when we're teaching, if we stay up by the presenting computer or the lectern or whatever it is, and we never move, that's fine for about 10 minutes. When you studies show, like they had they had college students strap on Fitbits to track heart rate and to see where their heart rate was during lectures and that sort of thing, to check for engagement. What they found is that after about 10 minutes, the heart rate immediately dropped, it started decreasing and dropping off to almost a full resting, like nap mode level, and stayed that way for the rest of the hour of lecture that they got. So we want to be aware, very aware of what we're doing in the classroom to keep students' heart rates up in a positive way, not like freaking them out or sudden loud noises and making them anxious. But we want to be aware of this fact, because depending on how students are, depending on how active, engaged they are, if we don't do anything specific after about 10 or 12 minutes, most students are going to just get into a low energy mode, kind of battery saver mode, if you will. So we want to make sure that we're doing things to maximize the use of the space, and even if we do have to lecture, which is usually preferred generally, you don't just sit and talk at students for 15 or 20 minutes or an hour at a time. So let's just talk about this. So if I'm over here and I'm presenting, I know I've got 10 minutes into the class, so I might take 3 or 4 minutes to check in with students on where they're at. And while I'm moving around the classroom generally, so I'll be asking questions. How was your day? How was your weekend? How'd you like the reading? Was it good? Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. I'll plan out some steady travel paths around the room, and in this case it's easy because everything's open. But if it weren't, I would move desks, move tables, move chairs to make sure I could get around the whole room. But I would continue for in this first 3 or 4 minutes, it's kind of everybody's getting settled, we're getting into like, what are we doing, all that fun stuff, and I'm going to try and make use of the full portion of space as I talk to students. Then I'm going to go, and then I might come up to the main lectern and do a presentation of content for about 5 or 10 minutes at most, to give them some good meat while their brains are fresh, while they're active. And that doesn't mean that's the only content I'll give them, but I'll use the space in that way. So then once I get to that 10-minute mark, what I'll do is I will have them shift into a free write, because it's not physically active, but it's cognitively active. So then they'll shift and they'll start writing things down on paper. Or if it's a young learners class, I might have them draw a picture, but I usually teach college students, so I'm just saying. Even then, I'll have college students draw a picture of what we just learned about content-wise, and that can be good. After that, I might have them, or instead of that, I might say, okay, so based on what we've talked about here, if I had them write, I'll do this too, or I just may say, I'm going to ask you guys to respond to a couple questions. So I'll say, okay, everybody stand up real quick. It's okay, no big deal. It's not low pressure. Just stand up, and I'll give them 10 seconds or 15 seconds to stand up. Come on, it'll be good. And then once they're all stood up, I'll say, now once you answer, you can sit down. And so I'll move around the space while I'm talking with them, and I'll have the conversation with students as they're standing up. And I'll say, okay, question 1, and I'll give them question 1. and I'll listen to their answers, and as I go around the room or as they raise their hand, you know, what do you know about writing? What do you know about language? What did we just cover content-wise? What do you know, if it's a grammar class for ESL, what do you know about pronouns? What do you know about that kind of stuff? If it's a rhetoric class, what do you know about audience? What do you know about purpose or exigency or the writing process? Whatever I'm covering that day, this principle applies because it's about active learning. And I'll have that conversation with them as I move around the room. So by using the space, you can think of if you think of like a heat map, everywhere I put my body in the room stays warm, right? Imagine me carrying a torch around, and then there's just this warmth that travels with me as far as active learning or attention span goes. If I stay all the way up here for more than just a few minutes, we all know what can happen because we've done it to professors ourselves. That back wall, the back corners, they're going to start getting cold for the most part. They're going to go on their phones, they're going to get distracted, but if I start walking toward them, they heat up. Now, maybe you've got a really good student, even good students, really focused. Even really focused students, when they're this far away from the professor for a long period of time, and it seems to be just going on, students will try and self-cope in this way. They will try and keep themselves active. So they'll go on their phone because the lecture isn't active or changing or interesting enough, even if it's really good content. So they'll be half focused because that's better than being half asleep in their mind oftentimes. So we want to move around the space. We don't want any area in the room to be cold. We want to, if we've got students, we can call them by name as we walk over. We don't want to, and if we do walk around and we see someone with their phone out, we don't want to make them feel guilty. We just go stand by them. They're going to put that phone away after about 30 seconds most of the time, because if they're sitting right here and I'm talking to the rest of the class, you know, being respectful, not to just like point at them, you know, I'll talk to the rest of the class, and even if they're not, even if they weren't focused, they suddenly have everybody focused on me near them, and they feel that pressure to stay active in the class. So we want to use the whole space. We want to imagine our body as if it were being overlaid as a heat map so that no area of the room gets cold. We want to keep the whole area warm. We can accomplish this with technology by using clickers and things like that. So this is meant to be a quick video on how to use space as a teacher. Make sure that your volume is loud enough to keep them engaged no matter where you are around the room. Make sure that you're physically moving around the room. And one other trick before I finish, if I'm talking to a student here, I might start the conversation in face-to-face. And once they start talking, what I'll do is I'll slowly back away. They felt, usually because I'm trying to engage them, I'm trying to make them see, like make eye contact, make them feel personally approached in a positive way, that I care about what they have to say. But I'll slowly back away and I'll look around the class and I'll keep my attention on them. But as I back away, what happens is students will raise their voice without even realizing it to try and make sure I can hear them. And as they do that, I can also gauge how quiet or loud are they around the room, and other students are going to suddenly be able to hear them better. Or if I'm like, wait, I didn't hear that last part, when I'm all the way across the room, it gives them a sense that they need to raise their voice. So all of those things are a way to use the whole space. I know this isn't a classroom setting, but I would move chairs and desks around to make sure that I have multiple travel paths around the room. So do that. And again, apologies, but I'm doing a special kind of community outreach style activity in this room connected to gameplay and empathy and character building. So hope you don't mind this. This is how I roll. So have a good day. Hopefully this was fun. Let it enhance your teaching.